Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started because we are a few minutes past. I was just giving a little bit more time for others to join in. But I know it was a quick transition between the third session and this fourth session. Okay, so just to get started and stay on time, my name is Denise Garcia. I'm the high school science curriculum coordinator, and I work with the high school curriculum instructional team. My session today is called AI on the Mic, bringing your lessons to life through podcasts for educators. And this is going to be like a cruel component because I really want to have you in the correct mindset that this is going to be a way for you to use podcast in your classroom to really reach those auditory learners in your classroom, not so much of from the student side where our students are the ones making those podcasts. No, this is a way for you to use podcasts in your lessons to really engage your learners in your classroom and just come from a different perspective than what we traditionally deliver lessons and how we do that. Okay, so let's continue to move forward. Just a little bit about me. I've already told you my name. I have 2 beautiful children and a supporting husband, and I've been in education for about 11 years now. Really a part of curriculum development and working side by side with our content teachers and being part of our instructional leadership team and working with our campus administrators to make sure that we're supporting our teachers instructionally, to deliver lessons to their students and really coming up with the best curriculum possible to do that. And any aspect that our teachers need support in, we're here to support them any way possible. Okay, so I really want to start off with our learning objective today, what I call WALT, right? We are learning to, this is what we're going to learn to do today, transform classroom lessons into engaging podcasts using AI tools like ChatGPT and Notebook LM. So we can support our student learners, make that content more accessible, keyword there, right? And bring your teaching to life in a format that students love. Our question of the day, and this is just a reflective question for you to think about as we're starting this presentation here, right? So how many times have you explained the same lesson 3 different ways, only to have some students still miss it? Maybe not all your students were able to master the lesson, right? You still have some that are struggling. And this is a way for you to have another tool in your toolbox to reach those learners who are struggling with the content and with the lesson, right? And then what if you could bring your content to life, right, in a format that they love, like podcast, right? And maybe not every single student will love a podcast, but there is a good group, right? Because that's something that's trending right now in our daily lives, right? In the culture that we're in right now is podcast. And what I had told my attendees who attended session 3 was, I have a nephew who's attending Harvard University. And over the summer, I was with him and we were going over, or I was just observing him, right? And so he had headphones in his ears, like constantly, like our students do, especially at the middle school and high school level, right? And like I just asked him, like, what is it that you're listening to? I thought it was some sort of song or something, and he goes, "No, I'm listening to podcast." I'm like, "Wait, what?" And so he's like, "Yeah, I listen to podcast all the time." Because I learn that way. I get familiar with like the news or what's happening, maybe something that's happening like in the entertainment industry, like football or something. But that's the way he receives his information, like what he's going to learn or what he's trying to figure out or find out or hear different perspectives on things. And that's the way he does that. And some of my friends who have students or kids who are of this age do the same thing. So I just found it very interesting to hear that our students are listening to podcasts to really get it's their source. That's where they get their information. So moving on. So before I was working on my presentation, I wanted to do a little bit of research because, of course, data always backs up like what we're trying to do. And I wanted to make sure like this presentation was going to be meaningful and impactful. And I wanted data to drive that. And so when I was researching, you know, around 48% of our students or kids between the ages of 3 to 12 listen to podcasts at least weekly. And it may be a podcast that we normally are used to where it's two people talking on a mic and they're having a conversation, asking questions. There's different forms of podcast, right? And so furthermore, if you really look into audio or Audible, right, and the National Literacy Trust, they found that almost 48.7% of 8 to 18-year-olds listen to some form of spoken audio, whether that's audio, books, or podcast. But almost half of our kids in the United States between the ages of 8 to 18 are listening to some form of audio, right? And how does that benefit the learning? Well, they're able to listen to that audio and to content that helps them understand the subject better. And so according to Audible, 43.1% of 8 to 18-year-olds agree that listening helps them better understand the subject, which is really the key of what's going to be driving our session today, is really meeting those students and having them really understand the foundational skills, the content that they're learning, right? And have a better understanding of it. We want to build lifelong learners. We want our students to have those foundational skills that they need. And a podcast is a way for them to do it, another tool in your tool bag, right? So just really quickly before I move on, no equipment is needed for this. You don't need headphones. You don't need a fancy studio. You don't need microphones. AI is going to do it all for you, right? And so I just want to give a heads up on that part. You don't need equipment. It's not you doing the podcast. AI is going to do it. AI is going to speak for you. AI is going to do the whole session for you. All you're really doing is feeding it the information you wanted to make a podcast about. And so no equipment is needed. Yay. Okay. So let's meet your co-producers here. Let me go back. Hopefully you heard that. Drum roll, right? So who your co-producers are in creating this podcast is one, ChatGPT. And what we're really going to use ChatGPT for is generating and refining that educational information. What exactly you want it to, what information are you wanting your students to listen to when they're listening to the podcast, right? We really want to refine the information, be very specific, very scripted on the information we want it to produce for us, because we know that within 5 minutes or less, our students are distracted and onto something else. So we want to make sure that whatever information we're going to make our podcast with, it's the correct information and it's everything they need to hear and listen to. Okay, so that's one of our producers. Our second producer is called Notebook LM, which is a different form of AI. It's not like ChatGPT. It's a different platform, right? And it's called Notebook LM. And Notebook LM is for generating the podcast and more. Okay, so we're going to make ChatGPT our co-producer of information, and Notebook LM is going to be actually the one doing the podcast, right? That's the AI that's going to make the podcast for us. And these two are counterparts to each other. They work together to be able to get your final product of a podcast. Okay, so really quick, in case you don't know what ChatGPT is, and I'm pretty sure we're all familiar with it, but it's a versatile AI tool that helps teachers save time, spark creativity, and personalized learning, right? It can generate lessons, create assessments, provide instant feedback on student writing, and suggest engaging classroom activities, right? And it's kind of almost like your thinking partner, so to speak, right? You're giving it information, it's kind of brainstorming with you on what you want it. What you want to do in your lessons and in your classroom. So then what is Notebook LM? Notebook LM is a virtual research assistant. It's still AI. It just helps you with the research component, and it quickly summarizes information. So it is really like a summary tool for AI. It helps take any notes that you may have, any sources, you upload it to Notebook LM, and it'll summarize it for you in various different forms, right? And just in a little bit, I'll go over what those type of forms are. But you're able to upload resources on there. It gives you instant insights and listen and learn on the go. You can upload an article and they'll summarize it for you, like using through a podcast, and they'll summarize it for you in 5 minutes and you listen to it on the go. Sometimes we don't have time to sit and read, or we don't have that time to do that, or maybe that space to do that, but we do have time to plug in and listen, or listen as we're driving, and this is a way that we can do that. But we don't want to be distracted drivers either. Okay, one key component of Notebook LM is that it can translate the information that we provided into a different language. And of course, we're wanting to service the demographics that we do at PSJA, which is Spanish speaking. That's our main population of students, right? And so it can translate that information for you into a different language, several different languages, with Spanish being the primary language for our students. One thing I do want to give you a heads up on, just FYI, with Notebook LM, as any search engine or any AI engine, there's the free version and the premium version, right? But the free version for Notebook LM has so much stuff that you can do on the free version before you sign up to get the premium, right? You have up to 100 notebooks, which in a little bit I'll show you what that is. You have up to 50 sources per notebook. So 50 sources that you can upload and do into each notebook out of those 100 that you have. And then up to 500,000 words per source. So you can't upload like a whole, well, maybe you can, a whole book, as long as it doesn't go up to past 500,000 words, depending on the book. Not Harry Potter, maybe that has too many words. But something that's less than 500,000 words can be uploaded into each notebook or per source. So the daily limits, this is the main thing here, 50 chat, like inquiry. So for example, with even ChatGPT now, you can only chat with it so much before it says, okay, you reached your limit for today. You have to get the premium version. Same thing kind of happens here with Notebook LM. And then this is the main thing here, 3 audio generations. This is where we're going to make our podcast. You only get 3 of them a day. So once you hit your third podcast for that day, it shuts off and you can't get or use it again till the following day, right? So that's why we want to be very specific. Make sure we know the information we want to feed Notebook LM before we get to this part, because since we're limited to only 3 tries per day for the podcast. Okay. If you buy the premium, you get unlimited, but for the free, it's only 3 per day, which I think is more than enough. Okay, so why podcast? If we really want to kind of make a connection to our ELPs, it's the listening component, right? And so we really want our students to hit that listening component of our ELPs, to make that connection, get that background information that they need to be successful in the classroom. And as we're looking at the data, 50% of our students of children in the U.S. between 8 to 18 prefer to listen to some sort of audio to learn. So we're really hitting that component there. I'm going to play, for example, what the podcast sounds like for you right now, just so you can see how it sounds. What happened here? Little glitch. There it is. Please let me know if you cannot hear it so I can redo it for you.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Ever wondered how teachers can truly reach every student? You know, even those who miss class or maybe learn a bit differently.
Yeah, those times when you just need to hear something explained again.
Exactly. Or maybe just hear it in a different way. Well, today, we're diving into a surprisingly powerful tool for that, one that's often overlooked. Teacher-created podcasts. And yeah, we mean audio resources produced by teachers designed specifically to enhance learning, not student projects this time.
Right, a different focus entirely.
Our mission here is really to unpack why this tool is so effective. What are the benefits for students? And, maybe surprisingly, how straightforward it actually is for teachers to get started.
Okay.
We're pulling insights from teacher-created podcasts, enhancing student learning through audio instruction. So, to kick us off,
Yeah.
what exactly is an educational podcast when a teacher makes it? What makes it different?
Well, essentially, it's an audio recording made by a teacher. Could be delivering new content, maybe reinforcing concepts or reviewing material. But the real game changer, I think, is unlike a traditional lecture, students can access it anytime, anywhere.
Mhm.
Imagine being able to pause, rewind, listen again to complex ideas at your own pace. That's the shift.
That own pace thing is key.
And the real magic here, it's a silent superpower for differentiated learning.
That's so.
It offers this invaluable format for auditory learners, and it's honestly a lifeline for students who might struggle with reading comprehension. It gives them the content in a more accessible way.
Right, so it's kind of meeting them where they are, style-wise.
Exactly, turning their learning style into a strength.
That's huge. So beyond just differentiating, what's maybe the most surprising benefit you see from that flexibility? Because learning truly becomes on demand sounds, well, immense.
It really is. Students can listen, like during their bus ride or doing chores at home, even during quiet study time at school.
Wow.
It's almost like having your teacher on speed dial for key concepts, instructions, test prep, you name it.
So that on demand.
Okay, so I'm gonna pause it there. It has a few more minutes. It just kind of goes over it, but that's kind of like the end product. That's what we're gonna get at the end of this, is where when you feed it the information, it's gonna make a podcast for you that sounds just like what you listened to right now. Hopefully it was playing and the sun was on. But that's what we want it to do, right? And so when we go back to our slide here, after listening to that portion of the podcast, how do you think it can support differentiated learning in your classroom, right? If we do a teacher-created podcast, or you're asking the AI to create it for you, how can it support that differentiated learning? So I want to give you like a minute to type your answer in the chat. How do you think it can support it? Or you can unmute yourself if you want to speak. So during like the third session that I was presenting on last, before this one, I know some people had mentioned, it can help support their EB students, or somebody was mentioning about using it as a station, a part of their station rotations, really letting go of the teaching and becoming more of a facilitator, and letting the students kind of listen to the podcast in that way. Just so many different ways you can differentiate learning using podcasts in your classroom. So as we move on, we're going to go ahead and get started. So what I want to do first is kind of walk you through the steps on how to turn your lesson into a podcast. They're kind of little screenshots first, and then towards the end, I'll do like a live version of it, to where I really do it, and you can kind of also watch that way as well. So I'm going to show you like the little snippets of the steps on how to do it, and then I'll show you the live, like a live example on how to do it. Okay, so step one is very crucial, because this is where you plan for your podcast. How exactly are you going to plan for it, right? So you can use your YAG from your curriculum documents, your year at a glance, to really see where you're at in your pacing calendar that the district provides for your content area, to see what student expectation you're going to target for the day, right? Or for the lesson in advance. The lesson internalization guide is crucial because it has very prescriptive questions on here that you can help answer and really target those questions using a podcast, right? And another resource that you can use here is Lead Forward, which is what I'm going to use to model for you later on. But these are just some of the many resources that you can use to plan for a topic that you want your podcast to be over. Okay, so then still part of step one is really choosing a resource. Do you want to use the curriculum documents like your YAG, your pacing calendar, which you should use, right? Because we want to make sure we stick to our pacing. Do you want to use the presentations that are in your daily lessons, or a presentation you may have, a textbook, a chapter from a textbook, because remember we're limited to 500,000 words, or maybe an article that you want to use, some notes that you have down that you did on that day that you want to go ahead and turn into a podcast so students can always have that accessible to them. Rubrics and projects. Maybe there's a project that you want a podcast created over that students can be an exemplar maybe of a podcast that you want your students to do. And then of course, Lead Forward and other resources that the district provides us, right? So then this is where it comes into the brainstorming part. This is where we really use that lesson internalization guide along with what is it that you want your end product to be. So then on here, some brainstorming questions is, what do you want your end product to be and sound like? What demographics are you targeting? Maybe you have a certain demographic in your classroom. You have your high achievers, your master's group. Maybe we want to target this group, or you have your approaches or lower approaches or did not meet group, and that's the demographics we want to target, or maybe it's EBs or SPED, whatever the case may be. And then academic vocabulary is crucial. What academic vocabulary do you want to incorporate in your podcast? We really want to focus on key vocabulary terms. I know in science, our vocabulary is very difficult, so it would be crucial and of most importance to incorporate words that we would be going over during that lesson. And then what misconceptions do you want to clarify? That's another key thing. We have a lot of students who come in with some misconceptions, and we really want that to be clarified through our podcast. Okay, so then step 2, you create an informational text, and we're going to use ChatGPT to do that. So we're going to get that information, the resources that we planned with, and we're going to put it into ChatGPT using a prompt, and it's going to generate that informational text or summary for us, depending on what it is exactly you want it to do. Okay, so the structure, like the way you want to prompt ChatGPT is you really want to be prescriptive into the TEKS or the SE, and the vocabulary you want to focus on, your targeted group, and then your key takeaways and address misconceptions. This is like the 3 main parts of the prompt that we're going to feed into ChatGPT. So from here, we go on to, okay, this is what the prompt looks like, and I'm going to share it in the chat just so you can have it there on the prompt. And those 3 components of the prompt that I had said on the slide before, those are the 3 parts that we want to focus on. So I'm going to share the prompt in the chat so you can have a copy of it. But the prompt reads, create a student-friendly informational text, because we're really focusing and want to use podcasts to deliver information for us that aligns with the following TEKS or SE. And this green area is where you would put the or the SE that you want to focus on. The text should target, and then in this bracket, this is where you want to be. ChatGPT is my best friend. This is where you want to put the grade level, the audience, who exactly you're targeting. And you want to give it as much as information as you can, right? And then focus on incorporating and defining key academic vocabulary words. This is where you want to insert the vocabulary terms that you want the information to have and make sure that they address those vocabulary terms. So then from here, you please address common misconceptions. Of course, you be nice to ChatGPT, which is Miss Debbie's best friend. So please address common misconceptions students may have about this topic and end with a summary of key takeaways to reinforce understanding. Now, you can have ChatGPT come up with those misconceptions for you and you verify it to make sure it's correct, or you can even use TCMPC, which is a resource that our district provides. It used to be called TEAC's resource system, but now it's called TCMPC, where you can go and look up those common misconceptions, and then you can also add it into here. That way you can make sure it hits those that's on that platform. So it's up to you on how you want to write it in. So once you plug in the prompt, you generate the information, no text or the summary, and you verify. Of course, with any AI engine, you want to verify that the information is correct. You know, they come in handy, they're your thinking partner, but you also want to verify that the information they're saying and stating is correct, because we never want to give our students the wrong information. So please verify that the information is correct. So here in this video, I'm going to show you really quickly just me taking the prompt, like how easy it is. That's the prompt with the information. I click generate, and it generated the informational text that I wanted it to generate about the carbon and nitrogen cycle, which is a student expectation that our biology 9th grade freshman students struggle with. One of our TEACs that they struggle with the most. And so it's making that informational text. So I'm just scrolling down, looking at the vocabulary words to make sure that it had the ones that I said. The summary is correct, verifying that information. And I'm kind of scrolling back up. It's not a long piece, right? So I'm just showing you here what it looks like when you feed it into ChatGPT. Your information may be a little bit different depending on your content area. So as we move forward, you take that information from ChatGPT, and it's as simple as copy and paste, right? So you copy all that information that it gives you, and then you put it into step 3, which is generate your podcast in Notebook LM using the informational text created in ChatGPT. Do you have to use ChatGPT? No, you don't. You can use a different AI engine, but for this case, ChatGPT is one of my favorites, so that's the one I use. But of course, you can use, Magic School, or what's the other one? The one with Microsoft, whatever it is that you want to use. You can use any AI engine, but in this instance, I'm using ChatGPT. You can even feed it the same prompt. It should still work. Okay, so you take the information from ChatGPT, you copy and you paste it into Notebook LM. Control-C, Control-V, our favorite keys. Okay, so when you first log into Notebook LM, and right now I'll walk you through it, but this is the way it looks here up at the top. So what you do here is you generate new. Generate new means you're going to create a new podcast or a new summary. Remember, Notebook LM is not, it is AI, but it's not the AI like ChatGPT, right? It's a different form of AI. Really, Notebook LM, just summarizing what it is, it summarizes information for you quickly, right? So Notebook LM is a Google extension. So you sign into Google with your Google account. You're from the district into Notebook LM, and once you log in, you click Create New. So when you click Create New, a little icon is going to pop up like this. This frame is going to pop up where it says like upload sources, Google Drive, link, or paste text. Here's where you'll paste the text. So you'll go up you'll click that. It's going to pop up this little frame here. And then this is where you copy paste the text that you got from ChatGPT. When you do that, you'll click Insert. So when you click Insert, then this screen is going to pop up for you here. So this is summarizing everything you fed it through the informational text from ChatGPT. And then up here is where you'll have that deep dive conversation and what is now called an audio overview right here, like it states there. And when you do that, you'll click Generate. And when you click Generate, it'll start working on making that podcast for you. Now, it does take a few short minutes. It doesn't make it like when you click generate, the podcast is ready. No, it takes like about 5 minutes, more or less, maybe a little bit more, depending on the information that you're giving it or how much information you're giving it, right? So give it a few minutes. It doesn't take very long to generate the podcast for you. Just another quick thing. I know I had stated earlier that you can translate into Spanish, right? So you'll click on settings and then you'll change the language. Oh, I'm sorry, I went too far ahead. You'll change the language. I thought I had another screen, but I'll show you right now. You'll change the language and then you'll put it into the language that you're wanting. And it has several different languages that you can translate into. One key thing that I do suggest is if you're wanting the language to be changed, like, I want this to be Spanish, I would change the language before you create a new notebook. Change the language first and then do it. Because what end up happening is you'll have a notebook in English and then you'll have one in Spanish. You'll have to do it again for Spanish. So that's taking up 2 notebooks. So if you know ahead of time that you're going to be targeting a Spanish speaking audience and you want it in Spanish, I would change the settings before you copy paste anything. Okay. Just a little key insight. Okay, and then step 4 will be listen and make final edits. So then you'll listen to it. Now they have a feature to where you can shorten the podcast. A shortened podcast is about 5 minutes long. And then it has like a normal podcast range that's about 9 minutes long, and then like an extended range, which goes a little bit longer than that, right? And so it's up to you. So once once the podcast is generated, click play and listen. My advice would be to go with the shorter podcast length because we know our students can get distracted very easily. And I think 5 minutes is more than enough time for a podcast for our students. Okay. Of course, you want to verify the podcast and approve it. And if you like it, then you click on the 3 dots and you download it like the way it looks here. So you'll click on the 3 dots and then you'll click download. It'll download to your computer, like it says here, teacher created podcast. And all you do is upload the file into your Google Classroom or your Google Drive, wherever you're wanting the file to be. Keep in mind, remember, on the free version, you only get 3 audio generations, right? So this is one. Let's say you listen to it and you don't like what it's saying, or maybe you wanted to change information. So then you're going to take up another one. So that's 2, and you only get 3 a day. So that's why it's very important to make sure that when you're doing your informational text in ChatGPT, that the information you're providing it is ready to go. So really quickly, let me go back. You can kind of see the summary it's making for you here. And this kind of already shows you what more or less it's going to say. It's not going to read this verbatim that's on here, but it's going to be very similar. So before you click generate, maybe you want to read this component first before you do that, because you can start typing here and you can say, can you take this part out and add this part in before you waste a podcast or a generation of an audio overview, right? Because you're only limited to 3. Okay. I'm sorry, I skipped the question. Okay, question time. Can you think of a lesson you can use this for? If so, which one? So if you want to go ahead and type it into the chat or come off mute and say a lesson you can use this for, and which one you think you can use it for.
Oh, hi. I even turned on my camera.
Hi. Hi. Welcome.
Not to a lesson, but I would say to our presentation to our staff.
Okay, a presentation to your staff. Okay. So instead of maybe doing like presenting a whole bunch of different slides, we had them listen to a podcast, right?
That's right.
That's right. I like that. And that's how actually I learned about Notebook LM, because I attended the TCEA, which you're aware of because you went to, right? And so that's how they used it for professional development. They had their teachers listen to a podcast that they were going to initially have them read an article that was a few pages long and kind of dissect the article and do the whole master groupings. This group is going to take on this first page, the next group is taking on the second page. And instead of doing all of that, they uploaded the article into Notebook LM, and they had their teachers listen to it the day before they came to that PD. So they were already had that foundation of the information that they were going to be sharing. They got right to creating the posters and doing all of that stuff. So it's kind of saved time at the end as well. So just a different way. And the teachers loved it from the presenter. They love doing that instead because it saves time. So thank you so much for sharing. Okay, so how do I implement a podcast in a lesson? So the way that I do that is on a daily lesson, because I do help develop the curriculum, right? The podcast that I have is on the explore portion, because I really want our students to listen and to explore the information. I know there's different forms of explore, right? And in science, explore is like kind of doing a little quick investigation to explore, but it's also listening and observing and making different forms of observations. So I would have them listen to the podcast, and then as they're listening, right, that's part of one of our helps. They're also writing because they're generating facts, like they're listening and they're writing at the same time. So I would have them write down 5 facts from the podcast that they heard. And so they would write it down here. And so then you start hitting the writing component of the syllabus. And then if you really want to incorporate more SIF strategies, then you would do the speaking part where they can write the 5 facts and then they get with a partner. And then from there, they go on to speak, right? And I want to share this protocol with you really quick. Let me go to my my download so I can share it with you. I'm going to put it in the chat. Okay, so that's the podcast 5 fact. You can come up with any protocol or any strategy that you want your students to do. Write a summary or generate facts or write down one thing. It's up to you on how you want to do it in your classroom and how you want to embed it in your lessons with the podcast. Okay, so I'm going to do a live example of generating it. Like I said, you can make a podcast in minutes, right? And so what you want to do first is, of course, you want to go to ChatGPT. Let me start a new one because I had this one, the lesson prior. Let me start a new chat. Okay, so what I want to do here is remember the prompt that I shared with you guys earlier. I want to input that prompt first. So I'm going to input that prompt here, and I'm going to focus on doing author's purpose, which is an ELA student expectation, a subject that our students kind of struggle with, and really making those foundational skills and that background knowledge that they need to be successful on this student expectation. So I'm going to go ahead. I don't want to send it in yet. I need to input the information that I want it to have. So I'm going to use Lead Forward as our resource here, just to quickly go through and get the student expectation from. I like that it's 2 different people interacting. It makes it more interesting for students. They get to hear a tone of emphasis. Yes, Miss, they do. Okay, let me see. I don't know what's happening. There it is. Adobe's acting up. Okay, so author's purpose is 8A. So let me go to that standard. And then, or is it 8B? 8B. No. Where is it? 8A is a readiness. Right here. Okay. So I know author's purpose is through all the genres, right? Not just informational. It's in, as you can see here, it's in every single genre here. So I'm going to copy and paste this standard into the prompt of ChatGPT, which is very crucial because you want the prompt to be as specific and as scriptive as you can get it. So instead of putting insert, I'm going to replace it with the text that I wanted to say. The text should target. This is very crucial. You want it to target the group, the demographic that you want to target. This text should target struggling readers who are not on grade level. They are 9th grade students taking the STAR. And then you can even put demographic. 60% of the population are EB students. Okay, focus on incorporating and defining key academic words. So this is another crucial component. You really want to focus on those vocabulary words, right? And again, using lead forward. I'm just going to stick to the genre of informational text, but you can incorporate all these vocabulary words. These are the words, the 4 words that I wanted to focus on, which is audience, author's purpose, evidence, and thesis, right? Those are the key terms I wanted to focus on. So instead of putting insert vocabulary terms, I'm going to put the words I actually want. Right? So audience, comma, author's purpose, evidence, and thesis. And then, of course, please address those misconceptions. I'm not the expert in ELA, but I'm sure ChatGPT is going to come up with great misconceptions. And of course, if you want to put certain misconceptions, you can also type that in here. So I'm just going to click generate. Okay, so at this point, I've already fed it the prompt of ELA. Again, we're focusing on the student expectation 8A, which is author's purpose. I put there on my prompt that I wanted the text to focus on struggling readers who are not on grade level. They are 9th grade students taking the STAR, and 60% of my population are emergent bilinguals, right? Or EB students. Of course, you can change those numbers, but that's just something that I wrote off the top, right? So I want them to focus on incorporating and defining key academic words such as audience, author's purpose, evidence, and thesis. Those are the 4 key terms I want them to focus on in my informational text, right? So that's what I fed it here. So this is what it came up with. And of course, as with any AI, and I've stated it before, you want to verify that this information is correct. Is it really targeting those keywords, vocabulary terms that I wanted it to target? Audience, author's purpose. It also included message, thesis, and evidence. Message is a new one there. I didn't incorporate that, but it picked it up, right? And so some examples of it, and then misconceptions. It's already telling me this is some misconceptions that students have when they come to author's purpose and they're focusing on that standard, right? And I'm verifying that the information is correct. So again, if there's anything that you want to change on here and you just tell a ChatGPT, I want you to also include this misconception, or I want this key takeaway. Like, you edit it as you see fit, but verify that the information is correct. And if you feel like this information is correct, then you're good to go. If you feel like you want to change a few things, then you change it, right? You ask it to do so. So what you're going to do next is, all you're going to do is Control V, Control C, right? So I'm going to copy this informational text. I verified it. I made sure it was correct, right? And then I go to Notebook LM. And all you're going to do is Google Notebook LM and it will pop up. So let me do that just to kind of show you really quick. It's asking me to do that. Let me just open up another. Okay, so here you'll just Google Notebook LM, and it should be the first one. Notebook LM is a Google extension, so you'll just type in that one, right? So then from here, this is where it's going to take you. Now, if we have time at the end, I can kind of walk you through a little bit more Notebook LM. But there's a lot of different stuff, Notebook LM. And really, it's your study companion. That's how I can summarize Notebook LM for you. You give it the information and it instantly creates study guides for you, FAQ for you, timelines, briefing docs, anything that you need. It's an AI engine that summarizes information in different forms. So you can kind of scroll through it a little bit more to see, kind of explore everything it has to offer, because it does have a lot to offer. So you're going to click Try Notebook LM, okay? Make sure you use your PSJA credentials to sign in. This is where the notebooks come into play. So remember, the free version only has 100 notebooks. I don't even have close to that because I kind of was looking at different things. And as you can see, there's a lot of science ones on here, right? But this is where you'll come to make your podcast. Now, if you're going to target your Spanish demographics, your EB students, and you want it to be in Spanish, I would recommend going to settings right now and changing the output language. Like, I already have it set on Spanish. So like if I was to make a notebook right now, it will create it for me in Spanish, right? But for this case, I want it to be in English. So I'm going to change it. So if you're needing it to be in a different language, change the language before you even start the whole process, right? So then you'll go to create new notebook. And here is where you'll go. Like if you have PowerPoints that you want to upload, if you have an article that you want to upload, any type of document, you'll upload it here. If you have anything saved in your Google Drive, like a Google Doc or Google Slides, you have a whole presentation on Google Slides, you can upload it here. A YouTube link, it'll summarize it for you, a website, anything that has a link aspect to it, you'll place it here. And then for our case, we're copying and pasting the text. So this is where I'll paste all the information that I got from ChatGPT. So this is the information that I got from ChatGPT, and I'm going to click enter. So from here, it's going to create my summary. Remember, Notebook LM summarizes information for you in different forms. It's that type of AI. Okay, so this is just a really quick summary of all the information I gave it. Now, these are the other ways that you can summarize the information. You can create an audio overview, which is what we're going to do today, the podcast. Video overview is brand new to Notebook LM. I haven't even had a chance to explore it. This is brand new, they just uploaded it last week or so. Mind maps, maybe you want to create a graphic organizer of that information that we just input into Notebook LM. And then different types of reports, like you want a study guide made out of the information we just placed in. You want a FAQ, you want a timeline. Like there's different forms that you can make to study and review the information that we placed in. But in this case, we want to do a podcast, right? So I'm going to do the audio overview. So when you click on that, it's going to take a few minutes to generate the audio of the information I just fed it, right? Using author's purpose from 8A of ELA. So using that standard, all the information I just gave it from ChatGPT, it's going to make an audio overview. Now, it does take a few minutes, like 5, maybe the max 8 to 10 minutes, right? It doesn't take very long. Now, if you gave it a lot of information, it's going to take a little bit longer because you fed it a lot of information, right? But it shouldn't take very long. I'm going to show you one that I've already done just to save a little bit on time. So we'll come back to this one here, but I'm going to go to a different one. Let me move this here. So this is the one that we made earlier. Okay, so I fed it the information that it provided me earlier. It may be a little bit different, but it's very similar. So this is the audio here, decoding or decoding influence, right? So you'll just play it.
Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're going to do more than just read between the lines. We're really learning to sort of draw the blueprint of how messages get built. We've got some fantastic insights here, sources like dissecting author's purpose, audience, and message. And, well, our mission today is to arm you with a sharper toolkit, to understand the real intent behind pretty much any text you come across.
Exactly. In this deep dive, it isn't really about the basics of reading. It's more about revealing those unseen mechanisms, the things that drive communication. Everything from, say, a news article to just a quick social media post.
Yeah.
We're looking at how authors don't just give you information, but how they connect, often on a much deeper level.
Okay, right. Let's unpack this a bit.
Huh.
We all know authors write for a reason. Yeah, that's the author's purpose. Easy enough. But beyond just informing or entertaining, what about the subtler stuff? Maybe even hidden intentions. Could an author be trying to, like, discredit something? Or maybe motivate inaction? Or even just normalize an idea without actually saying it outright?
Oh, definitely.
And then there's the audience. Who are they really talking to?
Yeah, and who are they really writing for? Is it always obvious?
Right. Or do they sometimes juggle audiences, maybe even one they wouldn't, admit to?
Well, that's where it gets really interesting. The audience is very rarely just everyone. That's a common misconception. An author might be targeting a super specific group, maybe parents worried about screen time, or even like a rival group in their field.
Right.
And understanding who that target is profoundly shapes how they write. It affects their word choice, the tone, the examples they pick, even what they decide to leave out. It's sort of
Okay, so it goes on for another few minutes, but it's really one thing that I do like about it. Obviously, if it's two people speaking, it sounds like a real podcast. This is AI, right? Speaking here. It sounds like a real podcast. It's not monotone. It sounds very interactive. And in 5 minutes, it's summarizing everything our students need to know about author's purpose. And I like that it gives those examples, those exemplars that our students can listen to and maybe make a connection to. I think I said about school, using phones in school, or something to that sort of aspect. But it also addresses those misconceptions that we wanted it to address. Remember how it said that a lot of students often think that author's purpose targets everybody, and sometimes it doesn't. It's only targeting one audience. I'm even learning about it right now, and I didn't even know that, right? And so those are things that our students can listen to, however you see fit in your lesson, whether it's summarizing what we did today as a teacher. Students are listening to this as an exit ticket. We want them to absorb everything we taught them today in our lesson and take a quick listen to the podcast and write some quick notes about it. However you see fit to fit this into your lesson cycle, that's where you'll play it. Another key component here are these reports. So like I said, it has a study guide, FAQ, timeline, briefing documents. I already have them generated here, right? And this is going to be the briefing tool, right? So this kind of gives you those main themes, those key concepts from the podcast, like everything that it mentioned on there, right? And it's summarizing those, addressing the misconception. You just copy and you convert this into a Google Doc, and your students have access to it, right? Or you can go and do the study guide. Now, this is a study guide that has a key here, and you can put this study guide with the bolded words and leave it blank for your students to fill in as they're listening to the podcast. Or you can have some where it's missing. There's good questions that are on there for them too to address. It's up to you on how you want to do it. But you can turn this around real quick into your classroom, and it already has it jotted down for you, right? What it is that you're wanting them to do. Author's purpose. Give me the definition that you heard in the podcast. Common purpose. What is its common purpose that you heard in the podcast? To persuade. Like, these are terms that are in the podcast that they should be able to write down and fill in. This would be like a teacher's key, right? But you can remove the extra information and have it for your students to use. And then here's another one. This one should be the FAQ, right? And again, what is author's purpose? What are some common examples? It already has the answer there, but you can have, could be like a teacher's key, right? And then you remove the information that it gave you and leave it blank and have your students fill it in with these key questions that are outlined here based on the podcast. So it already has those questions generated for you. It has answers too, if you want to give your students those answers later on to kind of reflect with, or maybe your special pops needs a little bit more guidance. This would be a good tool to use for your special pops to help them understand the podcast a little bit more. And you can also adjust the length of it. It's not too much. It's just a little bit of information there. It shouldn't overwhelm our students too much, but you can also edit as you see fit. So those are ways that you can use Notebook LM with the podcast to it. So again, it's just as easy as, remember, making the text on ChatGPT, copy paste it here. You have your studio that summarizes everything you put in there. And then the way that you download the podcast to give it to your students is on this 3 little dots here. You'll click download. And then when it downloads, you'll just save it to your Google Drive, and then you assign it as an assignment on Google Classroom. And you have your students listen to it that way, and they have access to it all the time. I know a teacher stated before in the session prior that they love the component there where their students can listen to it maybe one time, maybe 2 times, maybe a 3rd time that they needed to listen to it in order to truly make that connection and get the understanding of the standard. And all you do is assign it to Google Classroom, have your students listen to it either the day before. Maybe you want them to come in already knowing some key components of author's purpose the day before they come. So that way, the day of, they have an understanding. You kind of just talk about its review and you get really into the meat of the lesson instead of having to scaffold down. This is a way for them to listen to it beforehand, to that way you can have time to scaffold up instead of scaffold down, right? You're giving them that prior knowledge that they need beforehand if you assign it that way. There's so many ways that you can use this, and depending on how you want to use it, right? And so that's simply all you do, right? And then you can use that 5-fact protocol that I shared with you guys, where they listen to the podcast and they're writing 5 facts down as they're listening and gaining that information. So there's many different ways that you can do this. Do you have any questions? I've been talking a lot. You can use it as a note catcher for Arby's presentation. That's right. You can use it for your Arby's, so you don't have to go over all the slides. You summarize it, the whole Arby's, in 5 minutes or less. Okay. Okay, so once again, you're using ChatGPT to get that information for you. You place it into Notebook LM, that's going to summarize it for you. And there's many different forms of summarizing information that you can get to your students. And you can modify it and adjust it as much as you need to in order to reach your student population. So I'll be sharing this presentation with you. It's going to be on a PDF. I'll add it onto the chat. If you can please sign in. We had one more question, but I think we're running out of time. Thank you so much for attending the session. If you can please fill out the survey at the end of the session. I know Ms. Marvin placed it in the chat. They have amazing door prizes. And if you have any questions and you want to stay on, you're more than welcome to stay on, and I can answer your questions for you, or you can reach me at my contact information on the screen anytime. Thank you, Dr. Sines, for attending. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me share this presentation right now before I forget. Thank you, Ms. Marvin.
Now we can talk about Arby's here with Cindy.
No, we cannot. It's recording. Thank you, Cindy.